And we are back on the 0 hour. Just how far has government spying gone? How deeply has the technology of espionage intruded into the private lives of individuals, either here or in Great Britain or elsewhere around the world? Here to discuss one aspect of that story now is Ryan Gallagher. Ryan is an award-winning Scottish journalist. He writes for The Intercept, which is the investigative news website created by Glenn Greenwald and others, and he has been covering this story. His latest piece is called Profiled, From Radio to Porn, British Spies Track Web Users' Online Identities. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And listen, so Government Communication Headquarters in the UK, or GCHQ as it is known, there are new revelations, I guess, about it that you were writing about. Why don't you take a minute and tell us about that, if you would?
So the new story that we have out is it's exposing a whole range of new details about the extent of government surveillance carried out by the UK's eavesdropping agency, GCHQ it's known as. And we've shown that they had hatched a plan in sort of 2007, 2008 to try to monitor the website browsing habits of everybody in the world. You know, everyone that they were able to see using their surveillance systems. So the scope of it is absolutely vast. And to put in perspective the actual extent of what it is they were trying to create, it was the largest government surveillance system in the world, which is actually an unprecedented system by itself. So we're talking about something that's completely new, completely vast in scope, and also because of the UK's very lax oversight and regulations, probably one of the least regulated surveillance systems in any Western democracy. So it's quite a serious business, and we've tried to shine some light on that for the first time.
One of the things that struck me about your story in reading it, Ryan, was that you know, I think sometimes it's hard for people to picture the massive amounts of data that are collected and all the different places that data comes from. One of the things that struck me about your reporting is that it showed how it's integrated. That one of the things, if I understand correctly, one of the things that makes the system so powerful and some might say frightening is the ease with which it integrates all sorts of data, whether it's email, surfing the internet, other online habits, that you can basically, if you decide a person is a person of interest, that you can go in and call all of this up, the websites they visited, the things they purchased, the emails they've sent, and so on. Basically, that's why I've called it a 360-degree view of the individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that is very much what they're trying to do, and what they've done completely in secret, of course, is they've built this system, and their aim really is to have this information available so that if an individual does become of interest to them, they can kind of go back in history, if you like, and they can look at this person. So there isn't any kind of mechanism or any kind of legal mechanism that you would associate with this type of surveillance, where you have to have, say, a probable cause to go and look at a person in the first place. They're actually just collecting it all before they've even decided who they're interested in. So everyone's a suspect. And that's the kind of system they've created, and they go in there into these vast repositories, and they actually do they actually do what they call target discovery, which is they don't have any individual that they're particularly interested in. They don't have a name of a person, even a group necessarily that they want to focus on. They just go in and see what they can find, and they try to find people who might be interesting. So it really is the kind of definition of a dragnet surveillance, and what, a fishing expedition. That's what they're doing in there every day. And of course they do have some named individuals or whatever that they know already, But that's not all they do, and they do a lot more than that, and they don't often like to talk about that publicly, or reveal the fact that these are the things they're doing, because it's so controversial.
Sure. We're talking with Ryan Gallagher, reporter for The Intercept. So when you say they basically just go trolling around looking for somebody that's interesting, how would they do that? Would they start with a website that they thought was suspicious? I mean, you mentioned a couple websites, and okay, some of them might be radical Islamist websites, which, you know, legality aside, you kind of get the logic of why they might go there. But one was a French hip hop station or something. How do they just go to a website and say, well, people I want to spy on might be here, so let me see who's come here? Is that how they kind of go on these explorations for nobody in particular?
Well, they have all kinds of different methods. I mean, one of them is that they will do that. They'll have websites that they've deemed to be suspicious websites, whether that be Islamist website or otherwise. I mean, they don't just focus on terrorism. They do just general counterintelligence and also economic espionage and these kind of things. So, but I mean, there'll be websites that they'll be watching people going to. One example is actually a US website that's called Cryptome, and this website's been around for, I think, maybe a couple of, well, you know, maybe 15 years, and they publish stuff about the spy agencies. It's like a kind of pre-WikiLeaks website, and GCHQ was monitoring people that went to this website, for example, and I frequent that website quite a lot because it's a really interesting resource for me as a reporter. But more than that, they also do kind of keyword searches, which is like something out of the old dystopian sci-fi films where, like, you know, send a keyword in an email that triggers a kind of alarm bell for them, you know. So they'll sift through repositories of intercepted emails and try and find people who've used certain words or phrases in an email that they were, and then they'll go and look closer at that person and see, well, who is this guy? Should we be worried about him? So they do all kinds of things like that.
So I have a couple questions from that, Ryan Gallagher of The Intercept. One is, okay, I've gone to Cryptome myself. Now, is this espionage, since we're primarily a U.S. audience, is this restricted to British citizens, or is this they'll just basically go look at anybody who crosses their path?
Well, I mean, this is a really interesting part because GCHQ has lax regulations compared to the US. So if this was a US agency, like NSA is the equivalent of GCHQ in the US, an NSA would be very restricted in terms of being able to look at any communications or, you know, the content of a written email, say, and also the metadata, which is like just showing who you sent the email to and the time you sent it. The NSA is very restricted in regards to how it can look at that information. GCHQ, on the other hand, there's no restrictions for GCHQ when it comes to the metadata of British citizens, Americans, anybody. So they can use their this lax framework to look at virtually anyone that they're interested in. Because they have it's like a general warrant where they call it an external warrant, where they're basically just able to sweep up everything from international cables that connect between the UK and other countries, and huge amounts of data pass over these cables every single day. A lot of it is just on British people, also on Americans, because some of the major communications cables come between, like, New York, for example, and the Cornwall in the northwest coast of England. So this is something that does potentially affect, you know, almost everybody that uses the internet, because the vast quantity. I mean, we're talking about, it's like they were in 2000, and I think it was 2010 or 2012. They were collecting something like 50 billion records of people's metadata communications and internet use every single day. So, I mean, it's hard to even quantify the scale of that every single day. So I think it is fair to say that this is something that affects everyone, and also because of the lax oversight, it isn't like they're inhibited when it comes to looking at you just because
No.
you're British or American.
Right, and GCHQ, do they have a pretty close working relationship with the NSA here in the States?
Yeah, well, they're very close. I mean, they're kind of like the left and right hand of each other. You know,
Right.
it's the same person almost, if you were to think about it like that. They work so very closely, and I would say that. I mean, GCHQ is basically like the NSA on steroids. GCHQ is able to do things NSA wishes it could do. I mean, NSA has the kind of capacity and the technological infrastructure to do most of the same things that GCHQ does, but it is subjected to a much more rigid legal regime and oversight regime that puts restrictions on how it's able to deploy these massive surveillance capabilities. GCHQ doesn't have that, and as a result is able to collect a lot more information.
Yeah. So if I were, and I'm speaking hypothetically, but if I were at the NSA and I thought that this fellow Richard Eskow was of interest, but regulations and oversight prevent me from looking at him, I could conceivably call up a friend at GCHQ and say, give me whatever you got on this guy, right?
Well, I'm not sure. I think like the US's rules are pretty good to the extent that they're supposed to cover stuff like that. I mean, they're not supposed to be able to get a friend to do something that to them would be illegal. That said, I would be very surprised if there hadn't been cases where these kind of things had gone on behind the scenes. I think that there are all kinds of loopholes. And these guys know very well how to exploit them, and I think that, I mean, there probably are cases where they will have done things like that, yeah.
Now, one other thing, we're talking with Ryan Gallagher of The Intercept, reporter for The Intercept. This program was named, and this will surprise some of our listeners, was named Karma Police, right? Which is from the Radiohead song, This Is What You Get When You Mess With Us.
Yeah, well, it seems like they've named it after the Radiohead song, yeah, and it's kind of absurd. But they do have this kind of strange humor that you sometimes see coming through in these code names and the logos, for example, that they use for their secret programs. Like there's one, a different program where they use an image of a monkey as the logo for it. It's just kind of weird because, I mean, a lot of these guys working on these programs, they're really kind of geeky individuals. You know, they're like sort of nerd guys. They're like computer geeks, and so I think that's reflected in these sort of bizarre names of the programs. But they also it's kind of sinister as well. And the Radiohead example, because that song itself is like about kind of I think it's a kind of comment on the relationship between a man and a kind of oppressive society. So it's a kind of strange inversion of the true intended meaning of the song to then go and use the name of it for this secret mass surveillance program. It's quite bizarre.
Right. Oh, well, if they wanted to use a Radiohead song, they could have used Paranoid Android, I suppose, or Creep, for that matter. But a last question, Ryan Gallagher. What was the impact, if any, of this story in the UK? Were people saying, well, now this is out of hand, this needs to stop, or did people just basically ignore it, or has there been any sort of pushback as a result of this revelation?
Well, I mean, a few of the national newspapers picked it up, but largely it's the same thing happened as has happened since the first revelations from the Snowden documents in 2013 here, which is that most people just completely ignore it. There's a very strange atmosphere in this country where people just like to walk around as if they've got their heads in the sand kind of thing. And so it's not helped also by the fact that the press here is so completely incompetent that they just don't pay much attention to these disclosures, even though they represent something completely unprecedented in history, not in terms of just the disclosure itself, but what the disclosure is revealing.
Right.
So it's been kind of disappointing, the lack of debate, but that's not any different to back in 2013 when The Guardian was publishing some of this stuff.
No, absolutely true. But we're going to keep on it, and we really appreciate you and the rest of the team at The Intercept covering it. Ryan Gallagher, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Bye.
And we will be right back after this. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.